Hi, this is Dan Lexi from Dan Schultz Outdoors, reminding you to keep the adventures alive. Hey y'all, I'm Johnny.
And I'm Colleen. And we're the Keel Quest. And we want you to keep the adventures alive. Cheers!
Hey, this is Darren from Ride Paddle Repeat, encouraging you to keep the adventures alive.
This is David from Beasley Ironworks saying keep the adventures alive.
Hey, Kevin with an A here. Keep the adventure alive.
Hi, I'm Dan Mayotte. Keep the adventures alive.
Hi, I'm Kevin Collin, the Happy Camper. Remember, keep the adventures alive. Awesome!
Woo, buddy! Shug here! Keep the adventures alive. I am.
Ethan here, the Avid Outdoorsy Guy, reminding you to keep the adventures alive.
We're John and Aaron.
Keep the adventures alive.
Hey everyone, it's Kylan from Lure of the North, and I encourage you to keep the adventures alive.
This is Sky North telling you, keep the adventures alive. And now on with the show.
Well, hello and happy Tuesday evening, everybody. This is Dennis from CANOEHOUND Adventures, and you're watching another episode of CANOEHOUND'S Outdoor Adventure Show, a show that brings you a lot closer to the great outdoors. I hope everybody's had a great week since we had our show last week featuring David Arama and Boris Milinkovic, where we talked about bushcraft and where bushcraft and preparedness meet. It was a fun show, something a little bit different from what we normally cover here on the show, but it was a good time. And if you happen to miss it, don't fret. You can always go back into our past episodes playlist and check that out. Just before we do get started here, there's a few things. There's a little bit of a twist on tonight's show, and we'll talk about that when we get into intros of our guests tonight. Technical issues, you know, we can't help these sometimes, and that's what one of our guests is experiencing tonight. So we'll get to that in a few moments. Before we do get there, though, I just want to acknowledge my sponsors, or my channel sponsors here. We'll start with Algonquin Outfitters, outdoor adventure equipment and rentals in 4 key locations around Algonquin Park. Our good friends over at Kid Products, makers of the Kid Twig Stove and Reflector Oven. Hunter and Harris Paddles, makers of high quality canoe paddles, all handcrafted. Gotta love those things, man. I love mine. And of course, Novacraft Canoes, paddling the true north since 1970. These are all channels who gave us some really good swag for 2 episodes ago when we had some really big prize giveaways. So thanks to our sponsors, our supporters. It's a good thing, and it really helps this show to move along. And everybody likes getting free swag once in a while here and there, right? So that's all good. But you know what? You can always go and support them companies. And if you need more information on them, just go down into the description below and you'll find links to their websites and stuff like that, so that you can actually support those who support us. It's always a good thing. Let's see here. A few other things coming up this weekend. If you are in the Southern Ontario region or the GTA, or maybe in the near north or something like that, and you're looking for something to do this weekend, the Toronto Outdoor Adventure Show is happening. That's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Great opportunity for you to go there and actually meet all kinds of great vendors. Maybe you're planning a canoe trip or a hiking trip, or maybe you're into scuba diving, or you're looking for some travel and stuff like that. You can get all kinds of great information there. It's a great time or a great way to spend a Friday or a Saturday or Sunday afternoon. Lots to see, lots to do. And if you happen to be there on Saturday, by all means, head on over to the Adventures in Paddling stage, where I will be presenting myself. It'll be my first time in front of a live audience, a live in-person audience, rather than being on the live stream here. And it's shaping up to be a good time. I'll be interviewing a couple of Canadian paddling icons, being Hap Wilson and Kevin Callan. So I'm really, really looking forward to that. I'm going to throw a couple of questions at these guys that we might get to learn a little bit more about these guys, or learn something about them that you probably haven't, or you didn't know in the past. So by all means, if you happen to be at the show, please stop by and say hi. I'll be hanging out all day at the Kid Products booth. They're actually sponsoring our segment, and I will be there Saturday and Sunday. So by all means, stop on by. It's a good opportunity to pick up some really cool swag and stuff like that. I have discounted swag that'll be there. Get to save you some shipping costs and stuff like that. So by all means, if you're looking for any really cool Canoe Hound Adventure swag, we will have hats, we'll have mugs, we'll have patches, decals, stuff like that. So keep that in mind. And at the same time, check out the guys at Kid Products, and maybe get yourself a nice twig stove, or one of their really cool reflector ovens, or a nice titanium pot for that matter. So lots going on there. And if you are going to the show, let me save you $3 on admission. If you go to my Facebook page at Canoe Hounds Outdoor Adventure Show, you'll see that there's a post on there where you have a coupon code. And I'll tell you what it is, because you can probably just go online and actually go there, buy your tickets online. And the code is paddling, for the letters, paddling 22, and you'll save $3. You know what? Consider it. Canoe Hound bought you a coffee. Anyways, I hope to see you all at the show. Let's see here. We do have a bunch of things coming up here, and just want to let everybody know that end of May, I believe it's May 30th, will be our final show of season 3. So I got a few other really cool shows that I'm working on here before the end of the season, and we're just going to keep working our way through and get there. And it's going to be a lot of fun here. We're going to try and make the last few episodes really fun and informative for everybody. Just a quick shout out to all my channel members. Thank you very much for your support. It's greatly appreciated. As usual, you know who you are. And if anybody wants to know who my channel supporters are, if you look in the chat over there, you'll see beside a name, I'll take for instance, Norma Lynn or Vicky Beam. They have a nice little icon beside them. Those signify my channel members. And I just like to say thank you very much to you all, because like I say, it really helps support the channel and helps offset a lot of the costs. And if anybody's interested in becoming a channel member, all you got to do is hit that join button down, just right, I think it's down around here somewhere. And by all means, check and see what channel membership offers. And you know what? Love to have you on board as a Canoe Hound adventurer. Let's see here. Probably not a whole heck of a lot more going on, but I'd also like to say that tonight, just like every other week, our show is very interactive. And you know what? If you have any questions for myself or my guest tonight, please do put the word question in the chat over there, and then your question. And we would love to get some of them on air. I will mark them, and sometimes I'll get to them a little later in the show, because we might be, possibly discussing what your question is. But I will try to get to all of them as soon as possible. And if I haven't replied to it, please put it in there again, or better yet, I'll be posting a link in the chat. And if anybody wants to come on and maybe share a recipe or a food experience or something along that lines, I would love to have you on panel for a few minutes here, or to ask a question, or to share a recipe or food ideas. So that'd be a great thing. And with that being said, I guess you're kind of getting the gist. We're going to be talking about food tonight. We're going to be talking about backcountry food, freeze-dried, dehydrated, different meal plan ideas, how to store food, all these different types of things, preparation methods and things of that sort. And just as an FYI, also down below in the description, you'll see that there's a link down there to a past episode from about 1.5 years ago where we also talked about it using some of the same guests that we have on panel tonight. So, yeah, without further ado, I said I was going to mention one thing. Somebody was having a technical difficulty. I had on the thumbnail, you'll notice I had on there Randy from OTG Meals is supposed to be on the show tonight. And unfortunately, Randy's not going to be able to make it. His internet gremlins have snuck up on him, and I could really sympathize with him, because I'm sure many of you remember the days back when we had all kinds of internet issues. I finally got that cleared up, but he's in that situation now where his internet is out, and he's without TV, telephone, and internet. So the poor guy, I feel bad for him, but I told him he would be well represented, because I'm an OTG fan as well. And we will be discussing a bit of the freeze-dried stuff as well tonight. But with that being said, we'll introduce our two guests. We still have two guests. First, from the YouTube channel, Kevin Outdoors. Our guest has several great videos on dehydrating backcountry meals. His #1 top-selling book, titled Backcountry Eats, which I have a copy, and this is a wealth of information for sure when it comes to our food in the backcountry. It deals with all aspects of dehydrated food preparation. It's chock full of great recipes and cooking styles and things like that. Please welcome to the live stream, we have Kevin Ride. How you doing, Kevin? You're on mute. There we go.
That's the thing I always do. I always come on with mute on just to test you. It's spring. Let's talk about dehydrating food for trips.
Yeah, for sure. And then our next guest that we're going to have up on panel 2 is somebody who was also on the last food episode that we did. She also has a book out, and she has a really popular Instagram channel called Voyager. Oh my God, I'm going to trip over this. Voyager Tripper. Oh my gosh, yeah. She's got a cool little cookbook that's available in e-form, and by all means, you want to check that out as well. We got Michaela Ferguson. How you doing, Michaela?
I'm doing well. How are you
I
guys?
tripped over that one big time, right?
All good. I chose a difficult name just to be annoying.
and like I said, guys and gals, in all to represent OTG Meals as well, as Randy can't be here, in his honor, I am going to be enjoying a freeze-dried ice cream sandwich that OTG produces, and these things are awesome. If anybody's never had an ice cream, a freeze-dried ice cream sandwich or ice cream or something, these things are like great. So you guys go ahead, talk amongst yourself while I eat.
Any big trips coming up, Kevin?
So guys, so Kevin, you got quite the popular book out right now. It's a #1 bestseller in its genre there on Amazon, right? What can you tell us about the book? Is Kevin frozen up on us? Oh, there he is.
Yeah, you were really garbled for a second there. What? Yeah, the book's doing well. It just hit #1 on Amazon's best-selling list for a very small genre, but it's still #1. The genre was camping and hiking recipes. So I was pretty happy about that, since it's a kind of a self-published self-effort. They update that top seller list hourly, so it's changing quite a bit. But
oh, wow.
Earlier in the week, I hit it, so that was pretty cool.
Woo, congrats.
Awesome. Yeah. And this book come out, what, about 1.5 years ago now? Has it been that long? Did you hear me, Kevin?
No, sorry, I can't hear you.
Okay, I asked, is the book, how long has it been out? When did the book come out?
It's not been out 1 year yet. It'll be out 1 year in I think June or July. So it's been less than 1 year.
Cool. Cool. And what can you tell us about the book? What's everybody going to find in here?
The book is about, let me just figure it out here, about half technique and how to dehydrate meals and what to look for in a dehydrator and all the techniques of how to dehydrate fruits and vegetables and meats and how to substitute other ingredients, how to meal plan, all that kind of stuff. And then the last, I guess, half is all recipes. There's 100 recipes in here with a few special guest recipes. It's getting some good reviews. It's getting a good word of mouth in the public as you're seeing a few comments below there. So it's I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah, you know what? There's so many backcountry YouTubers that I know of, and even people that might not have a presence on, on YouTube or on Instagram and stuff like that. But so many people have a copy of this book already, so I could see why it's actually hit the #1 thing there. I think you'll probably stick around there for a little bit because it's so informative.
Yeah, word of mouth is really spreading. I haven't been doing a lot of marketing because I live in the north, so I'm not going to the shows and peddling my wares, so to speak. But it's really taken off through word of mouth. So I'm thankful for everyone who's talking it up.
Yeah. And also, as an FYI, everybody, if anybody's interested in getting a copy, I know it's a little early to talk about this, but you can get, there's a link right like at the top of the description, just down below here, where you can actually see, I got a link to the Amazon feed there where you can actually pick up a copy for yourself. So if it's something that tickles your fancy, by all means, help them stay at that #1 position. So, Michaela, tell us a bit about yourself and what you bring to the table here as far as yummies in the backcountry.
Well, my name's Michaela, obviously. I feel like a lot of people I'm seeing in the comments have seen me on this channel before. I love canoeing, and I recently got into backpacking. And my first few canoe trips, I absolutely hated them. And I think a big part of that was because we were just eating terrible food. I don't know why people thought that 15-year-olds could you just hand them ingredients, they'll figure it out. We did not figure it out. It was terrible. Oh, thank you. So it's generic hotel art. Anyways, so once I started being a canoe guide, I wanted to make food a central part of what I do. So I based a lot of my trips around, once you get to the campsite, like the cooking, the food, the experience of being together and working together to come up with recipes and actually make the food and have like family mealtime was really important to me. So even after I left guiding, I still make the mealtime a big part of the tripping that I do. So I love trying that with people.
And you also, in all fairness, you also have a small publication here that's full of information, which really reveals you kind of have a sweet tooth, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Because you got a lot of good sweet treats in here that can be made over. Now, I'm fortunate enough to have a hard copy of this, but you do have it available as an ebook as well.
Yeah, once I moved to the US, it was just too hard to ship and print them. It just became like so expensive. So now I just do it as a digital copy. So
cool.
I want to make sure everyone can get it, even if I can't physically ship it to them.
There you go. Awesome. Okay, so let's get into a topic here of talking about different meals, and right now seems to be the time of the season, or even before this, when people are starting to prep their meal plans for their summer or spring, summer, and fall adventures, right? So a lot of dehydrating is happening right now for those that have dehydrators. A lot of people are just stocking up on the, whenever they can, on the dehydrated meals and stuff like that. Where should one start, Kevin, to start prepping meals and getting their dehydrators in gear?
Yeah, I would say if you're start really simple. You can I would recommend getting a dehydrator. Some people dehydrate with their ovens. If you have a convection oven, that's a good way to start if you don't have anything. But there are some inexpensive dehydrators out there on the market that will do a really good job. Get one with a thermostat so you can set the temperature at different temps, and start with something really simple like spaghetti and sauce, and just start learning and keep going.
Mm-hmm. How did you get your start in dehydrating food? Was it just a pure necessity from backcountry tripping?
Yeah, pure necessity, and I think that's kind of why I got into writing the book. I wanted to help people get out into the backcountry. When you're a front country camper, you can bring some fresh stuff, and you might be cooking pasta and other things, and bringing some fresh ingredients like apples and onions and stuff that's pretty durable in a pack. But once you go a little bit deeper into the backcountry, a 4, 5, 6, 7 day trip, you're going to really want lighter food, because when you dehydrate food, you remove about 80% of the weight. And of course, you increase the shelf life. You don't need refrigeration. So you can keep stuff, relatively cool and survive. I often bring chicken on a short trip, and I'll freeze that and wrap it up so it stays frozen. But you go beyond 3 days and you're going to want dehydrated or freeze-dried food just to get you going. I tell people, if you go overnight backpacking and you bring some canned tomato sauce and some spaghetti, and you cook all that, you don't need much more to go for a week if you dehydrate, because you've turned that meal. If you dehydrate that meal and 5 other meals in a week's menu, basically, you're going to have the same weight as one overnight trip. You've got all the same gear. So bring a little bit more fuel, bring a few changes of underwear and some socks, and you are ready for a week-long trip.
Mm-hmm. Oh, cool. He kept talking, and or he stopped talking. His mouth kept going, right? So, are you hearing us okay, Kevin?
You're cutting in and out. I'm hearing most of it. So yeah.
Okay, good stuff.
Are you hearing me?
Yes, yeah, loud and clear. You're coming through well, so that's good stuff. So, Michaela,
good.
What about yourself?
So now, I won't raise my voice.
When it comes to your meal planning, how did you? Was it? I'd imagine it was out of pure necessity as well. But what urged you to write a book on backcountry meals?
Yeah. So I would say it was I started dehydrating and caring about the food out of necessity. I had the benefit of working at camps and for outfitters that taught me how to do a lot of the meal prep, how to make a good meal plan, how to think about recipes and nutrition, and how to do the dehydrating and the packing. So I learned so much from my time working in camp. But a lot of people just don't have that opportunity. Either they just didn't work at camps, or they didn't go to camps, or they've gotten into canoeing later in life and want to kind of get that knowledge. So I took on the little book as a bit of a pandemic side project. I just had more time on my hands. It's like, I could just make a lot of blog posts about this, but that's going to be really hard to read on a website. So why don't I just put together this really big PDF of like everything I've learned over the last, 8 years of canoeing, and put it into a fairly easy to read, lots of pictures format, to just try and help people get those first few steps going. And I'm still not like your fanciest dehydrator. I've actually never owned my own dehydrator because I move so often. So I do everything in a convection oven. I would love to get a dehydrator. I know which one I want, but with moving around so much, it just doesn't make sense. So I kind of hope that in the way that I think about food and think about meal planning, it comes off as being very accessible. Like, you don't need a lot to get started. There's no like secret that you need to have in order to get started. Like, just get a tray, some parchment paper, throw some canned pineapple onto a sheet and put it in the oven, and you'll be really excited with what comes out. So just getting those like few tries of dehydrating under your belt, and you'll be ready to do a Thai red curry and try some fancier stuff.
Awesome. So, Kevin, before we get into about like dehydrating specific foods, can you I know you have a lot of examples of different types of dehydrators that can be used in your book, right? Can you go through a couple of those?
Yeah, let me see if I can find you a picture here. Yeah, I'll share screen.
Yeah, if either one of you have share screen, if you want to get it set up now, we can pop it up at when it's ready. And there we go. So Kevin's got it's coming.
Yeah.
There we go.
I can see it.
Yep.
Yeah. So I saw a question. What's the best dehydrator? The one on the right is a Nesco, which is pretty inexpensive. I've got 2 of those. I've got an older one and this one, and they last a long time. They're really inexpensive. They work really, really well. And it's got a thermostat on the top. it doesn't have a timer, so it doesn't stop working. I recommend getting trays for it. So this is a dehydrator tray, because a lot of the camping foods that you're going to be eating are going to, Michaela mentioned red curry. So a red curry or most camping meals are wet, right? There's soups and stews. So having a tray, and the Nesco will come with probably 2. So you might want to get a few extras. The one on the left is the Excalibur. It's also very, very popular, but it's a lot more expensive. It's got a couple knobs in the back there. One is for temperature and one is a timer. So you can set it to 8 hours and it'll shut off. That one doesn't come with trays, but there are some other companies that in the last year or so started making trays for this. It's a square dehydrator. This is one that's a little bit kind of small. It's a silicone tray, and again, that's really, really good for those meals that are wet. It's got a little bit of lip on it, and it's really good for meals that are wet. So yeah, that's those are the 2 most popular ones. There's some other ones, but again, I would these work really, really well. I've got another picture somewhere here of here's one of a giant. This is my buddy's Cabela's, and that's the Excalibur beside it, and it's getting into that commercial size. Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. He got into picking wild mushrooms one year and tried to make a bit of a business out of it, and that's his commercial dehydrator, and it's more than you need.
So I guess the question is, did you take your dehydrator to him for that picture, or did he bring it to you?
He lent it to me, but that thing is like a small oven. I'm a big, strong guy. It's hard to carry. It barely fits in my truck behind in the passenger seat there. So yeah, it's a behemoth, but it's another option. But the Excalibur on the left there is really good. Both styles of dehydrator work, in my opinion, very, very well. I would say the Excalibur is a little bit better dehydrator. It does a thorough job. You still have to rotate your trays around to do a perfect job. And for the money, I would say the Nesco is number 1. And if you got extra money to spend, you can always get an Excalibur later. And Michaela was talking about, I saw some questions about dehydrating in the oven, and maybe Michaela could answer those. Somebody was asking about how to do that.
Mm-hmm. So what I do is I take baking sheets, lay some parchment paper on top, put whatever needs to get dehydrated right on there. Parchment paper is important. I once accidentally used wax paper, and that ruined the whole meal, so don't do that. Parchment. Then you put it inside the oven. I've gone back and forth, excuse me, on leaving the oven open or closed, and found that as long as I have the convection setting turned on, I can leave the oven doors closed and it's fine. But I do think you need to play around with your oven on that piece. It does take a little bit longer with some ovens if you have the door open or closed, because the air needs to escape somewhere, the moisture. So play around with that. Convection setting is good. Try the door open, try it closed. And then depending on your oven and how low the temperature goes, like mine, I think the lowest is 160, whatever unit ovens are measured in. So I just set it to the lowest it goes. My parents' house, theirs goes a little bit lower, so I can put it even lower in that sense. So it's kind of a gamble on how long something's going to take. Usually for something that's really wet, like pineapple or sauces, it takes longer. So I'll always check in after about 6 hours on those kinds of things, and then kind of just regularly check back in to see how the things are doing. But once you start to get to know your oven, you can be much better at pinpointing, oh, this is going to take probably 8 hours and I don't really need to check in until then. Like beans take a long time. So do things that are wet, obviously. Whereas if you're doing something like kale is super fast. So you'll sort of start to pick up on with your specific oven and how it's designed and the temperature it gets to, how long it'll take. But it's pretty, because it's such a long process, as long as you keep the temperature really low and you're checking in every hour, like it's very hard to burn things. Assuming that you don't accidentally like set the temperature too high, which I've made the mistake at, or like forgetting that it's in the oven and then coming back, 10 hours later, I'm like, oh my God, oops. So learn from those mistakes and don't do them. But besides that, like, it's pretty easy to just experiment with how your oven is. So just the trays, parchment, throw the stuff on, put it in, and then play around.
Yeah, Donald's saying if you prop the oven door open on a fork or a spoon, it'll vent just enough.
Mhm.
And that's what you want, is that heat, that moisture to be sucked right out of the whole thing, right? So
Yeah.
same type of pretense. I've got a rather inexpensive food dehydrator that works quite well, but you're looking, it's not uncommon to have 12 to 14 hours to dehydrate whatever you're dehydrating. So any of you have any experience with freeze dryers, perhaps, or
Not personally,
No, I buy freeze dried ingredients. There are some home freeze dryers. They're like a small washer or dryer, and they're about $3,000. So you can get into that, but it's a thing. It's crossed my mind to do, like your other guest who canceled, to get into the business of freeze drying meals as a hobby, but maybe we'll hold off on that because of the cost.
My wife and I are contemplating right now whether we buy a freeze dryer. Yeah, they're a little more than $3,000. They're upwards of like $4,600 for a medium sized one, right? So
yeah, it depends on what kind of pump you get. There's an oilless pump and a pump that requires more maintenance.
One thing that I've been looking at on your recommendation, Dennis, is a vacuum sealer. So currently I just put everything in plastic bags, but you told me once that you put your things in, like, you vacuum seal your dehydrated meals. And I would like to eventually get into doing that, but
yeah,
I move around so much that I'm not going to buy one of those.
When we vacuum seal our meals, I should have brought actually a prop, but we also pick up, and you can get these on Amazon or something, or the little moisture or the oxygen absorbers. Highly recommend throwing one of them in there as well, just to take up any of the extra oxygen and just prolonging the life of your dehydrated meals. So yeah. And vacuum sealing, it works, but you know what? It's not always the most effective, because if you have anything in there that's got a sharper edge, and I've tried a bunch of different things. I've tried putting paper towel inside the bag when I freeze or when I vacuum seal. I've tried putting parchment paper in there, and if you're doing any kind of pasta, that stuff is like a rock when it's dehydrated.
It
it's gonna pop a hole in the bag, and once it pops a hole in, you've kind of diminished your vacuum seal type of thing. So is what it is, right? So let's talk a little bit about different foods and how to prepare or maybe dehydrate, because Kevin, in your book you cover a lot of stuff on there, everything from like doing meats, doing dairy products. You have dairy products, all your vegetables and stuff like that. Where should we start?
Well, let's start with veggies. I see some question about any tips on veggies and onions and peppers. And do you ever get flavor transfer from multiple racks? So I'm looking at a couple. I'm getting better at the show, Dennis. I've been on 4 or 5 times. I'm learning how to watch the comments a little bit better. Tips and veggies and onions. Cut everything small. Let me see if I can put up. Here's some vegetables. Share screen again.
Yeah. You could always just leave that share screen open and I'll drop it in and out.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. Save you a lot of effort.
Okay. And so I'll leave that on. Yeah, here's some veggies that I've dehydrated. There's a picture from my book. I've got some asparagus and some red peppers, broccoli, peas, mixed vegetables, and zucchini. So vegetables, I would say cut them relatively thin. So peas and corn kernels are just the right size. Cut everything about that diameter, about 1/4 inch or whatever. And long things like asparagus can be cut up short. Broccoli is kind of open, so it can be a little bit bigger. Zucchini, 1/4 inch chip or whatever. And just throw that in the dehydrator on an appropriate temperature, like 130, 135 Fahrenheit, whatever your dehydrator recommends, and leave it and check on it. And when you check on it, flip it around and rotate it. And after a while, it will dry. It's so there's a lot of sources that'll say dry for 6 hours, dry for 12 hours. I have found that I get really wild drying times. I have found that it's the humidity in my house that really drives things. So in the wintertime, things dry really, really quickly because we heat our home and it dries out. In the summertime or spring, like right now, where it's very, very humid, it takes a lot longer to dry stuff. So when you're seeing a source that talks about how long to dry something, don't trust it. Just start drying and check on it. Some things take a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And about flavor transfer, yeah. I like to saute my onions a little bit, either in a tiny bit of oil, and we'll probably talk about oil and fat, or in a little bit of water or broth or something before I cook them. Or raw onions really stink and will stink up your whole house and will impart flavor to other foods. So I tend to saute them or throw them in a slow cooker or something like that before you dehydrate them. And another thing is shrimp. I tried some shrimp once, and that will stink up your whole house. So certain things you want to certain things you want to be careful of, or cook them in advance, and that'll lower the stink factor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I will never personally dehydrate onions again in my house. Never, ever, ever. It left my house smell like an onion factory for about 2 weeks afterwards. So
yeah.
I'll prefer to buy
That's
it.
interesting.
Pardon?
I always dehydrate my onions separate because I do notice a flavor transfer, but I've never noticed it stinking up the house. As we choosing less pungent onions.
Well, and we got meat on stage now.
Cool.
Yeah, this is just some variety meat, some chicken on the left. The sort of orangier chicken in the back has been cooked in a pressure cooker with some spices, so the flavors are cooked into the chicken. I find chicken is one of those tough products that doesn't rehydrate well. I've found that pressure cooking it first is the best, or canned chicken. Canned chicken is also pressure cooked inside the can. There's some jerky there. There's some ham. My rule of thumb is that if something is less than 2%, you will have less than 2% fat, you will have decent success dehydrating it and making it last. Ideally, for perfect safety, you want 0% fat, but any meat that you dehydrate, any fish or any meat that you make into jerky is going to have some fat. So I've got some ham there that is dehydrated, and I always look for a really lean ham. You can find it in the grocery store. It'll say 2%. Sometimes it'll say 1%. And then on the right there, I've got some hamburger and some pork, some ground pork that I've cooked. I've boiled it in water, and that helps remove the fat again. And I drain it in a colander, and I'll pour more boiling water on top of it to get all the fat out of the meat before I dehydrate it. And that will, again, help it last a lot longer.
Mm-hmm. I find when you do the ground beef and stuff like that, and you do rinse it like that, you wash a lot of the flavor away too. So that's where seasoning comes in really handy after the fact, like when you're preparing your meal, right?
Yeah, seasoning, and I'll bring some olive oil or some clarified butter, and I'll throw that back in my pot after it's rehydrated. And that just adds a bit of a fatty taste that your mouth picks up on. It's not exactly the same, but again, your goal is to make this stuff last in the backcountry. So you got to get rid of the fat. You can put it back in later to kind of return the flavor to it.
Mm-hmm. I got a couple of questions here. Leave that picture up because I do have a bit to add to that myself. Evan Hammond's asking, what determines if you dehydrated your ingredients together or separately? Like, if you're, say, for instance, maybe doing a meal or.
So there's two streams of thought there. Before I wrote my book, I've got a collection of books that talk about dehydrating everything separately, and some that dehydrate the whole meal together. And what I've found is that fruits and vegetables are dehydrate optimally around 135, 140 Fahrenheit, and meats, chicken a little bit less, but meats should be like 160. So when you dehydrate everything individually, you end up with complicated recipes, and you might not have onions, or you might be missing something. So you have a whole lot of ingredients that you need to store and keep track of, and your recipes get a bit more complex. So likewise, if opposite, I mean, if you dehydrate your whole meal together, you're not going to have that mess of ingredients to keep track of, but you're going to have less optimally rehydrated food because you've got to pick a temperature, and meat should be dehydrated hot and other things less. So in my book, I talk about a hybrid style of dehydrating. Make your meal without the meat and dehydrate that, and then make the meat and dehydrate that separately at a higher temperature, and then combine that when you're packaging your food. And I find that that's a really good balance for me. There's no right or wrong answer. You can do either, but there's some pitfalls, and those are the pitfalls. And I find the hybrid method works the best for me.
Okay, and that basically covers the same thing. Barb was saying, do you dry everything individually in store and then assemble meals, or or can you do complete meals? I would say it has a lot to do with the meal as well, right? Like the type, like if it's chili, you're not going to do all individual ingredients for a chili, right? You're going to do that.
Yeah, for a chili, for meals that you stew, like a chili where you want the meat to pick up the flavor, I'll dehydrate that as one thing, and I'll set it on the meat temperature and just live with the results. Yeah.
Okay. You had mentioned the chicken and the chicken in a can. One thing that I really noticed is I use chicken in a can as well, like old man in the canoe here, but I go to Costco. Costco has their canned chicken. It's a large can. You get like 3 of them for, I don't know, $10 or something like that, $11. I'm not exactly sure on the price, but I find that their chicken it's like a roasted chicken breast, or like however they cook it, steamed chicken breast, but it's all been pulled apart like pulled pork, so it's like kind of stringy. It's not like the typical chicken in a can that's like they call it flakes of chicken and stuff like that, which I find has a lot of oil in it. When you dehydrate that, like those particular brands, they have a lot of oil comes out of the meat, and I think it's because it's like a chicken McNugget, like the parts is parts type of chicken. If you get a quality can of chicken, like you would get from Costco, you're actually getting something that is like genuinely just white meat that's been like steam cooked, and it's like it dehydrates really well, but it rehydrates really, really well.
Yeah. You want to avoid any of the canned meats that are packed in oil. Like tuna can be packed in oil, or it can be packed in water. You want it packed in water. You don't want any fat on your foods when you dehydrate them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So do you have any other specific tips for like preparing? Like you mentioned ham. Would you dehydrate ham the same way you would dehydrate your beef or your pork or your chicken? Like, is there any other steps that you would need to take to dehydrate or dehydrate?
Yeah, with the ham, I think. Yeah, with the ham, again, if you look at this picture, it's the one in the middle jar there. Cut it thin, about 1/4 of an inch. These are little sticks more than little squares, but throw it in the dehydrator on a meat temperature, so 160. That 2%, select a really lean fat, a lean ham, so 2% or less if you can find it. And even that 2% is going to sort of perspire as it dehydrates. So dab it with a paper towel and remove that fat in the process.
Mm-hmm. And then how long will these store for? Like what's the best storage method for any of these meats? Say like we'll say, because ground beef is probably one of the most common that people do use or utilize.
Yeah, they'll store, if you remove the fat, they'll store a very, very long time. You also want to make sure you do a thorough job of dehydrating. After that, you want to keep air away from these things, so store them in a perfectly airtight container, preferably a vacuum sealed bag. That'll be the best. And add it, if you want to keep it a very long time, add an oxygen absorber as you were demonstrating. That'll last a very, very long time, probably a year or more on the shelf. You'll probably get more than a year if you do that. Keep it out of the sun, keep it in a cool, dry, dark place, and it will last a very long time. If you want it to last almost forever, throw it in your freezer, and it will. That's what I do, and people always comment on my channel like, why do you freeze it? Aren't you defeating the purpose? Well, if you're drying food to be a prepper and get ready for a catastrophe, you don't want to rely on a freezer. But if you're doing this for camping, I just make my meals, I throw them in the freezer, I forget about them. When I get in a panic about going on a trip, I look at my freezer and I've got 20 meals ready to go.
Right. Yeah. And is there a way of telling you, like, can you tell through smell or something if say, for instance, the meat is spoiling?
Yeah, rancid meat will give a slight smell to it, and that's your main kicker.
Yeah,
your main identifier.
Wow. Michaela, do you dehydrate any meats, any chicken, pork, beef, anything like that?
I do ground beef, but that's about the extent of it. I typically do most of my trips vegetarian, just because I'm a little paranoid about doing the meat incorrectly and then giving it to kids. But I feel like I should get over that and try this out. It'd be cool to have chicken on trip.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. And you know what? Pick yourself up a cheap dehydrator. Mine's just a cheapie and it works wonderful, right? So
it's not so much the cost of having the dehydrator. It's like, I'm going to be moving again in a couple months. So like, what do I do with it then? I have just more things to carry around with me.
Right. Yeah. No,
I will get one. I promise.
Yeah. So Kevin, what do you got here now? Looks like
I just thought I'd throw up some fish products. There's some shrimp there. There's some salmon in the front. I'm starting to forget what the types of fish are. So I think one's haddock and I forget what the other one is. And then as you move to the far right, there's some imitation crab, which dehydrates really well, and some canned clams in the back, which, when they rehydrate, they're a little bit chewy, but just want to show the range of what you can do is you can certainly make a clam chowder or any sort of a fish stew or something like that. And dehydrated salmon is very, very popular. Salmon is one of those fishes that you're not going to find a 2% salmon, 2% fat salmon. Salmon is normally about 8% fat. So you want to eat that early on a trip. You want to dab off all the fat during the dehydration and ideally freeze it or keep it refrigerated before you go. Mm-hmm. But it's very popular, and it's an example that we commonly dehydrate fatty foods all the time. You're aiming for safety. You're always aiming for that 0% fat, ideally under 2% fat. But there's foods that we commonly eat, like dehydrated salmon, that are have a higher fat content.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So basically, what you've made there is almost like a salmon jerky type of thing, right?
A salmon jerky, yeah.
Some things I know that you have there, I would never have thought about dehydrating. The clams and crab or imitation crab, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't commonly do this, but because I was writing a book, I decided to push the limits and test some stuff out. But people have been dehydrating fish for a very long time here in North America. When I traveled in Africa when I was Michaela's age, you would go to a market and there was nothing but dried fish everywhere. So it's really, really common. There's always some fat in that fish. But it's a very common thing that's been done for thousands of years.
Right. Yeah. That's pretty cool. What other type of ingredients do you have good success with?
Here's one. You were talking about pushing the limits a little bit. On the left, I have dehydrated 2% yogurt. I find that 2% is the sweet spot. It dehydrates and rehydrates well. The 0% yogurt it dehydrates, but it does not rehydrate well. It gets really greeny, and I don't know what's in it that causes that, but you can rehydrate 2% yogurt very nicely. Again, don't dehydrate the 10% yogurt. Go for the low fat stuff. Mm-hmm. In the middle is clarified butter that I make at home. You can buy it in the superstore, especially in the Indian section, known as ghee. It's another fat alternative. As long as you keep it dry, it does not go bad. It's like lard in the grocery store. If you go to the baking section, lard is not sold in the refrigerated section. It's sold in the grocery store. Lard is rendered I guess it's beef tallow, or is it? Oh, it's pork. Pork fat. And once it's rendered and all the water is removed, it is very, very stable. So is butter. So I just simmer butter for about 15, 20 minutes, boil all the water out of it, separate the fats from it, and I usually pour it through a coffee filter. And at room temperature, it becomes solid again, and it is very, very shelf stable. So it's a great way to bring fats into the backcountry. And the other one is cottage cheese, which goes great in lasagna. Again, 2% is the sweet spot. It just an example of pushing the limit a little bit. It's not oily at all to the touch. It's nice and dry, and it works very well.
Now, I've done the cottage cheese for my backcountry lasagna, and it does actually work out quite well. Quite well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what about shelf life on something like that? Is that being like dairy products? Is it gonna?
I have found it lasts a long time. I've got some stuff that I just pulled out because I was getting ready, and the year that I was doing this book, I was dehydrating like tons of stuff. So I got a big pile of dehydrated stuff, and I couldn't fit it all in my freezer. And I was just checking the yogurt. It's good. It smells nice. I'm gonna rehydrate some before a trip and test it out, but I think it's gonna be great.
Mm-hmm.
And the butter, the clarified butter, as long as you don't get it wet, it will last. So my tip is do not use a wet knife or spoon to dig into that. I learned the hard way that a little bit of water will cause that to go to spoil quickly.
Right. Now you were, well, we weren't mentioning it yet, but the biggest difference between dehydrated foods and freeze-dried foods, I know it's a totally different process for both. Can you explain, or either one of you explain the process involved with, say, for instance, freeze-drying? This is where we were supposed to have Randy to tell us about it, right? But
I can go if you like.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'm no Randy.
Michaela?
I can't speak to how the process of freeze-drying. I'm sorry, guys.
Oh, go ahead if you like. I can't hear you.
No, you go ahead, Kevin.
No, I'm saying, Kevin, you should.
Okay.
I don't know anything about freeze-drying.
Sure. Freeze-dried. I've got some ground beef here and some cheese. It's freeze-dried. I'll often add this into my meals. It's a different process. The food gets put in a vacuum and frozen. And I did some research of this, and I describe it in the book. And I'm struggling to remember all the steps, but the freeze dryer will cycle the pressure up and down at a very, very low temperature, and the moisture will be driven out of whatever it is. And freeze drying can work for fats. Dennis, you were showing some freeze dried ice cream there. Yep. It works great for cheese. So I've got some freeze dried cheese. I occasionally try beef and stuff, even though it's I can make it at my home and dehydrate it. The benefits for proteins like chicken or beef is that you can freeze dried solid chunks of things. So I've seen a friend of mine camping. He dumped out a bag of stuff once, and it had a freeze dried chicken breast. The whole breast was there. You don't have to cut it up. It takes a while to rehydrate. So you can dehydrate fats, not really high. Sorry, you can freeze dry fats, not really, really high sugar content. So you can't freeze dry a jam, but you can dehydrate fatty foods, and you can dehydrate chunks of things, which, sorry, I keep saying dehydrate. I mean freeze dry. You can freeze dry all that stuff. And it works really, really well. Lasts a lot longer than dehydrated food, but it's very, very pricey. So I tend to get stuff like this, a little bit of cheese. Someone on my channel commented, this is very expensive. It's like $20 or $30 a bag, but you just take a tiny, tiny little bit because it's shrunk. A little bit of this in your lasagna or on some spaghetti or whatever it is that you put cheese on goes a long, long way. And I've got an open bag here that I've had for 3 or 4 years. So it's not that expensive when you think of it that way.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I think from what I understand with the whole freeze drying process, just because I've been doing a little bit of research on it of late there, because the wife and I are considering, right? And I think the way the process works is it freezes, like hyper freezes the food down to about minus 45 degrees. And then through vacuum, what happens is the freeze dryer will heat up the contents of the freeze dryer just a little bit, which causes it to give off moisture vapor, and the vacuum
sublimate
sucks. So therefore, when you freeze dry, that's why when you freeze dry things tend to hold their shape, right? Basically, you're taking all the moisture out, but you're leaving all the molecules are still there, right? Case an example, like I say, this getting all these cookie crumbs all over, right? But like this thing looks and tastes just like an ice cream sandwich. It's just dry, right? It's not going to melt anywhere. It's been sitting here for an hour now, and it's delicious. But that's one thing is you can freeze dry things that you can't dehydrate in some cases, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, absolutely.
And if you've ever had freeze dried gummy worms, they're incredible.
Yeah.
Look at Michaela, her eyes, huh?
You can freeze dried desserts. This opens up a whole new possibility for my dessert.
I know, right?
Option.
Now you're getting a freeze dryer.
I'm definitely ordering these ice cream sandwiches as soon as this call is done.
Yeah, well, just go to OTG Meals, and they're very popular. I bought 2 bags, and they both include 2. So, and I had to hide one for my canoe trip in this year. So, otherwise, my wife and my daughters would get into it. Yeah. Kevin, quick question here. Derek's wondering how come the pemmican he makes can only last on his counter for like a year? Is that like why can that last so long?
I'm not sure. I didn't do any research on pemmican for my book. I've seen it done. I've seen people do it and have it spoil, and I've seen other people do it and have success. It is partly because of the sugars, I think, in the berries and stuff that you pound into the meat. The meat is dry, so it should last. I think it's usually done with a wild meat like a venison that is low fat anyway. So there's probably a lot of factors as to why it lasts. I think Jim Baird did a video on some of that recently, and maybe if I do, it's making a comeback. Like it's the traditional Voyageur food, or one of them anyway, because it lasts. It's fairly light, and it's making a comeback in modern times. So I might do some research on that for the second edition, perhaps. We'll see.
It'd be interesting because I don't know if you've been watching Jim Baird's last series here, or was it this series? No, it was the series before when he actually brought pemmican with him, and Ted tried it and thought it was horrendous, and Jim's like, "Oh, this is so good, right?" So I guess it's a matter of taste, right?
Yeah, I think so for sure.
Cool. Let's talk about both of you, some of your favorite meals that you prepare. And this might be a great opportunity for anybody in the chat. I'll post a link here in a minute. If anybody wants to come on and share maybe one of their favorite dehydrated meals with everybody, you know, it'd be a good opportunity to have other people try what you actually enjoy in the backcountry. So, Michaela, we'll start with you. What are some of your favorite dehydrated meals that you would like to have out in the backcountry?
Oh my gosh, so many things. Do they have to be dehydrated? Can I just
no, you know what? Any meal for that matter. Yeah.
Let's start with breakfast. I love a good set of cinnamon rolls made in a Dutch oven. That's got to be kind of top for me. I also learned that the icing that Cinnabon puts on their cinnamon buns doesn't need to be refrigerated. So that's been a bit of a game changer for me. So that would be my favorite breakfast, though I don't really have it except on rest days. We can skip over lunch. No one gets that excited about lunch anymore.
Sure, jerky.
It's usually just wraps. Dinner, though, I love chili because it's easy to make. I love all kinds of curry. I used to only ever bring canned coconut milk. Recently learned that you can actually buy, I don't know if it's freeze-dried or dehydrated, actually, now that we're talking about the distinction. But one of them, you can buy coconut milk dried, which would save on weight. So I love curries. And all kinds of pasta. Basically anything that's like carbohydrates and like a lot of cheese, two of them together. Love it. But if we were to now move into my favorite part of the day, which is dessert, I would say there's like, I can do a chocolate cake in the backcountry, which I love, or a cheesecake. You can get cheesecake powder from Bulk Barn, and that like when you add water to it and heat it up, add some graham crackers and some wild blueberries, amazing. Or a s'more pie where you like fill the Dutch oven with graham crackers, butter, brown sugar, put the marshmallows on top, sprinkle in some chocolate chips all around, bake it over the fire. Like that's another great one. Basically anything, whatever your favorite meal is in the real world, in the non-camping world, I would say 9 times out of 10, you can make it in the backcountry. It just might take a little bit of creativity. So it's a challenge for everyone, whatever your favorite meal is. See if you can make it.
I told everybody in the chat that Michaela's got a sweet tooth in the backcountry. Nothing wrong with that. Those are comfort foods, right? Those are the things that make you not want to leave quick, right?
Yeah, and I find that no matter how difficult, maybe I have this bias because so much of my canoeing has been with kids, but no matter how awful the day can be with like brutal portages or it's raining the whole day, if you whip out like some really great macaroni and cheese, like everyone's happy. So
yeah. There you go. Another plug for Kevin there. His favorite meals are anything from Kevin's book. That's cool. I'll get into some of your favorite meals there, Kevin. Maybe share a few recipes with everybody. But we got somebody that just popped into the basement here. I'd like to get up on screen. Sure. Here's a face I haven't seen in a while. It's Grizzly Adams.
It has been a long time. Honestly, I'm feeling kind of nervous. This is the first time I've been on a live stream in forever.
Yeah. So how you been, Ethan? Long time.
I'm doing good. How you guys doing?
Doing okay. Good.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't know if I have a specific recipe to bring up. I have one I want to try. I want to try to do like a taco hot dish sort of thing. Basically, it's like a simple, like just spiral noodles and taco meat with like a bunch of extra seasoning and just kind of mix it together in the dehydrator to see how it turns out. I don't know how it's going to be, but I wanted to say to Kevin that this book is awesome, man. Like I bought it the other day and I am going through and marking a ton of recipes and just like making lists of all these ingredients and not realizing all the things I've been missing all this time planning for these big trips. Like I'm pumped for food now. Like
well, thanks. Really pumped. I love to hear that people are doing it, and I love to hear that people are diverging from the recipes. Almost every time I hear somebody try something, they said, I tried this differently and it worked out great. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm excited. And I've been like binging your videos and like I made a pot cozy. Like I'm going all right out.
So when can we expect to see you up here our neck of the woods? For those of you that are familiar with or may not be familiar with Ethan there, he's located down in the USA. So but he likes tripping up here, Algonquin and Temagami and Quetico and Woodland Caribou area. So,
yeah, I have the biggest trip I've ever done in the works of planning it right now to Quetico. And it's going to be probably over 2 weeks solo. And it's going to be probably the last couple weeks of August into September or last week of August. I don't know yet for sure on the dates. But working out that long of a trip when the longest I've done before is 7 days in Woodland Caribou. It's quite the adjustment on like how I'm going to do food and stuff. There's a lot more logistics involved. So I've been, I got like a food barrel and I'm making a lot of changes. So there's a lot more planning involved than I'm used to at a trip, but I'm super excited because I have not been to Canada since like 2019 and it's killing me. So I'm really pumped.
Mm-hmm. Just give me 1 sec here. I want to put a comment up here on screen. Kanu's saying that OTG website shows that they're sold out of almost everything. Something to find out about. You know what? By all means, contact Randy. Sometimes he doesn't update his website all the time, but he does small batches. All the food done by OTG are usually all small batch foods. Randy being a chef, okay, so he prepares food, and then he's got a couple of freeze dryer units, so he's always got stuff on the go. So it comes and it goes fast. This, like the OTG meals in our Ontario community right now, like these things get snapped up quite literally like that. So if you contact Randy and you tell him what you're after, and he will even do custom meals. If you said, like, I'm just going to throw an example, I'd love to have a shepherd's pie, and he knows it's something that'll sell to the general populace, he will actually do up a batch or two of shepherd's pie. Only if you're buying, even if you're only buying like a couple packets, because he knows that the certain things like that are going to sell. You can't get that if you go to like a Happy Yak or a Mountain House or something along that lines. This being a small business, and he's all certified, and he's all like, his kitchens are inspected and all this stuff. So he's legit when it comes to health and safety for this stuff. But small batch is the way to go. This guy's got some delicious meals. So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
you can actually like hire somebody to do your freeze drying for you. Like, I was just looking at them yesterday on like Home Depot's website, and they're like $3,000. Like, oh my God, I don't know if I could justify that. That was a lot to drop on backpacking food. You know, like I'd have to do a lot of camping to make up for that. I don't know if I have the time for all that.
I'm gonna show you an example. Like, I've got Happy Yak Pad Thai, okay, which is really, really good, and they're beef stew. These meals here, if you get them at any outdoor store or Good to Go Co is a place where I get these because I save like $1 or $2 maybe. But these are like, say, $16 to $20 meals, right? And it's a great portion, but that's a lot of money for one meal. Whereas you're getting the same amount of food and it's gourmet style from a place like like, look at this cheeseburger casserole, right? Through OTG. All his packages are the same, but he labels them differently, right? And it's small batch, and it's really tasty, and they're like 12 or we'll say $10 to $15 range depending on what you're getting, right? 2 ice cream sandwiches for like under $6. Like, come on, that's like, go to the corner store and buy an ice cream sandwich. What are you paying there, right? Yeah, $1.99, right? And they're not freeze drying it, so yeah, pretty crazy.
Is it just me, or is there quite a difference between the freeze dried and the dehydrated foods in weight? Like, I've carried like some Mountain House meals and then my own dehydrated meals, and it seems like my dehydrated stuff weighs a lot more than the freeze dried. Is that like a normal thing? I don't really know.
I think in some cases, I think some items are probably a little less weight, but it's Any thoughts on that, Kevin? Like, do you find any difference?
I don't, but I don't use a lot of freeze dried stuff. I buy the like cheese, especially. And I don't notice a difference. But I'm not trying a whole meal. I did some chicken chunks last year just to experiment. They were pretty expensive, and they seemed about the same weight.
Yeah. Canu, don't worry. He always does the ice cream sandwiches, so they will be available. Like I say, drop him an email. Send Randy an email if you're looking for any freeze dried foods, because he'll help you out. He answers this stuff too, so that's pretty cool. So what do you plan on putting on the menu then, Ethan? Do you have a favorite dish that you like to besides steak and potatoes? Do you have a favorite meal that you like to prepare in the
so far, like, I've made up a list, and I'm gonna try his soba noodles, and I'm gonna try beef stroganoff, and the butter chicken. Those are the 3 ones I want to try for him so far. I got like a list of ingredients that I don't have that I need to get, and I've like went through and tweaked a couple things because I have the palate of a 5-year-old sometimes, and I don't like a lot of things. I'm really picky. It drives me crazy, but it is what it is. I am that way. So, like, I'm just kind of finalizing some stuff. I've got like like some typical stuff that I usually take. I bought some Ova Easy eggs recently, and just I'm building up my stockpile now. That way I have all this stuff ready to go ahead of time, because honestly, it's kind of crazy, but I'm quitting my job to do this trip. And I'm just like jumping all into it. Like,
that is commitment.
I'm going, this is commitment here. Like, I'm going all out. Like, I need to make this happen. It's killing me not going on these trips.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to get it all out of the way now, so I don't have to make any expenditures right before the trip, because I'm going to need to like save up some money to last me a little bit.
Ethan, I'm very sad that we never got to do our ISO trip there a couple of years ago.
I know. That does bum me out. I thought about maybe trying to make an ice out trip happen this year, like a short one, but I don't know. It's just not in the cards. So
nor is it for me. Yeah. If I do, it'd be a very short one, but
it would be like a weekend,
Yeah. So Kevin, you obviously have done a lot of research on doing dehydrated food and stuff like that, and you obviously have quite the extensive recipe catalog within the book. What are some of your favorites back there that are easy to whoop up, and good punch for the buck type of thing?
Yeah. Well, I try and follow Michaela's kind of lead there and try and challenge myself in terms of what I can bring to the backcountry, right? Like, when I figured out lasagna, I knew I was onto something because people like that. Shepherd's pie, buttered chicken is super popular with the Brits. Like, there's a few of these kind of things that I do that people are like, oh, I didn't realize we could have that backpacking or on a canoe trip. And so I got a few more pictures here if you want to look at a few.
Sure. Yep.
I've got am I sharing? Yeah, I'm sharing.
There we go. Yep.
Yeah, this is so Michaela started with breakfast. I figured that was a good logical process. Here's some options. These are Jim Baird's crepes. I took his recipe and made a dehydrated version of peach crepes. Pancakes with a dried berry sauce on top. Those are a little more complicated. Bottom right, I've got a yogurt with fruit in it, and I've sprinkled some dehydrated pomegranate seeds on it. Pomegranate seeds are really flavorful. They go good in yogurts and salads. Might not be everybody's thing, as Ethan was saying, but a lot of the things in my book are kind of like, well, maybe you don't like it, but you might be interested in it, and maybe you'll apply it to something else. Just some basic in the middle there, just some basic oatmeal, some quick oats with some dehydrated fruit and some powdered milk makes a great, quick, easy breakfast. And again, on the more complicated side, I've got like a baked quiche and like if you're going to stay in one spot for that day, get out some dehydrated, some freeze-dried eggs and some dried fruit and bake yourself a nice egg meal. Those are some challenging things. Here's some spreads. Lunches, I don't do a lot of lunches.
Here's a sample of dried whole egg powder. This is by Happy Yak, and this is something. These are like $6-7, and they've got what's it say, 6.5 eggs in it. I think. Where's the thing here? It says the equivalent of 6.5 eggs. I don't know what happened to the other half of the egg, but let's see. I'm not going to get that to focus. But the equivalent of 6.5 eggs. I don't know what happened to the other half of an egg. I guess it's in the next package. But these things here,
it's half of a baker's dozen.
Yeah. There you go. Exactly. Okay. But I've used this for a couple of years now. I know, Ethan, you have one that you really like to use. You mentioned it before. But this stuff here, you wouldn't even know it was a freeze-dried egg. Trust me. After you've cooked it, you have to cook it, obviously, right? Rehydrate it and cook it, and it tastes just like egg. It's incredible, but only in the omelet form. So, yeah, they're over easy. So that's a very popular one too. That I don't know if we can get that in Canada.
I think you can, because I learned about them from a YouTuber named Winter Trekker. So that's where I got these from.
Okay.
Yeah, this one is 5.3 eggs. It's 2 ounces, and they're freeze dried. So I think they're awesome.
Yeah. So we'll get there's your share screen again, Kevin.
Yeah. So this is lunch. I usually don't dehydrate a lot of stuff for lunch. I tend to bring bars, and I do bring fruit leather and stuff like that for lunch, jerky. But here's some spreads and some baked bread. And different hummus and different salsas and bean spreads that you can make. Let's see what else I got here. I think Michaela mentioned pasta. I love pasta. either sometimes with meat. I don't think any of these. Oh, the one in the top corner has meat. But pasta primavera. That looks like a pesto. I forget what these all are. I know the one in the top corner is. What is it? It's the one with just an egg. So I use the Ova Easy eggs. That's the brand I've got right now. But any of these freeze dried eggs work really, really well. And that is trying to remember the name of the Italian dish, pasta carbonara. It's an egg sauce with Parmesan cheese, and those are bacon bits from the store that last very, very long. So that's just a really a rich dish. It's a very simple Italian dish. You make it in about 10 minutes once you make your pasta by mixing egg and Parmesan, and you mix that together and you let the egg cook in the warm pasta. And it's a bit tricky to get the temperature exactly right, but it makes a really creamy sauce. And then you bacon bits and pepper. Pepper is the tradition to put on there. And it's a little bit harder in the backcountry, but it's a great example of pushing the limits on what you can do.
That's awesome. Just goes to show, you don't have to eat poorly in the backcountry. You can eat like really, really, really well if you know what you're doing, and there's a lot of variety. So, really quickly, Michaela, I know you had to duck out by a certain time. You had another commitment going on.
Mm-hmm.
I know you got to go. So, did you want to tell everybody how they can get a copy of your backcountry cookbook in the e-format?
Yeah, if you just head to voyageurtripper.com, it's right there at the top, cookbook. I'll see about if I can also post a link in the comments.
Please do. I do have a link in the description, but if before you leave, if you want to throw that link in the comment or in the comment section over there, by all means, please do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if I could leave on just one recommendation for everyone watching, just have fun with it. And if the first couple meals aren't that good in the backcountry, it's all just a learning process. Like, it takes time to go from eating like rice and beans that were the bane of my existence when I started to like creating some really great meals. Like, it's definitely an evolution. So just experiment, have fun with it, and know that like not every meal is going to work out. But if you go into it with a kind of learning mindset, it can be a lot of fun to experiment. And it's especially a fun thing to do with your friends, your family, kids, like incorporating them in the meal planning process as well. So it can just be like a really great experience, like rather than just nutrition. It's also just a great part of being on trip.
Yeah. Well, Michaela, thanks very much for joining us last second. Please do get that link in there. And there's also the link in the description below if you need more information on Michaela and her Instagram page and Voyager Tripper and stuff like that. So by all means, give her a follow because she writes some really good blog posts all the time. And I enjoy reading them. So
great. Okay.
Thanks, Michaela.
Bye.
Take care. Awesome. We have another person in the basement that I'd like to bring on, and just bear with me for 1 second here. Let's see.
Hi, I'm Kevin Collin, the Happy Camper.
Woo! Yes, I'm Apostle number 14. Well, if you visited me instead, you would have been fine. It's one sexy beast, I'm telling you. You know, I called you poopy pants. Sorry about that.
Did you really?
I will hold in my urine for you, Dennis.
You have to remind Kevin that this is a family show.
What about the chipmunks?
Awesome.
Hey, Kevin, how you doing, bud?
Oh, it's dark.
I thought it was John Denver for a second there in the back.
You never know. You never know. Rocky Mountain High. It's really dark. Sorry. I guess I got to
because your hat is casting a shadow.
I know. I'll go over to where it's light. I got a new camp hat. Christine said that I'm going to burn my ears off if I start wearing a cap all the time, and I got this thing. So yeah. Oh my lord, it looks ridiculous.
Oh, quick question still here for Kevin Ride. We got the Kevin and Kevin show. So what would you say is your favorite camping meal in the backcountry? Like, do you have one that is it's always on the menu for the trip?
Is that me or Kevin?
Kevin Ride.
Sorry, I missed that. Oh, me.
Kevin Ride.
Yeah, I think here's one I can throw up. This is not a fancy meal. This is what I call beef and rice, and it is one of the first meals that I made ever. for dehydrating and getting me into the backcountry, and it's one that it usually comes on most meals, most trips.
Awesome. Yeah. I've got a couple that are the regulars on the trip too. One of them being my chicken quesadillas. They turn out really nice. And my shepherd's pie is always a big hit.
And now that Kevin's here, I'm going to share. This is Kevin. You said for some reason pineapple doesn't dehydrate well, and this is fantastic stuff. So canned pineapple slices dehydrate really well, nice and sweet.
Really? It's not brown?
Awesome.
Didn't turn brown?
No,
John.
Nice. Look at them.
John from Lost Lakes, he preaches that fresh pineapple dehydrating a lot. He says it's the bomb.
Well, what am I doing wrong then? So every time I do it, it turns brown, and unless I put lemon on it.
Yeah, turn your dehydrator down a little bit, 5 or 10 degrees Fahrenheit, and if it's still brown, turn it down some more.
Yeah. So how many hours would that be?
It depends on relative humidity in your house. Could be 10 or 12 hours or more.
So why not just go to the bulk food store and get the dehydrated stuff there instead?
Yeah, that's an option. Those products tend to be dried with more chemicals. So, but yeah, that's certainly an option.
Okay.
And a lot of the health food stores will have the better quality, so it might not be as chemically tasting. I know the bananas you get in the grocery store are dehydrated with a lot of chemicals.
Well, yeah, that's the thing is I tried bananas at home and I'll never do it again. Like there's just a brown chip. Like it's disgusting. So
yeah, turn your dehydrator down.
Yeah. Okay. What about onions?
You'll have better luck.
What about onions? Because I'll never do onions again because my house stunk for like 2 years after that.
Yeah. I saute them first before I do them, or I make them part of a meal, and then they turn out okay. I have raw onions can really stink up the place. It probably depends on the kind of onion too, but raw onions can be a real lot of trouble.
Well, I just find going to the bulk food store and getting onions is better than doing them. I dehydrate all the time. I'm doing this right now, right? So, but also spaghetti. Here's the thing that just baffles my head. Like, so you make a spaghetti meal, like noodles, hamburger, whatever, and you dehydrate that, and then you bring it on a trip. The noodles are already dehydrated before you cook them. Why are you doing that again?
Because they weren't cooked the first time around. So I've tried this. I've made a video actually about this and I tried it different ways. They'll sort of warm up and get cooked with some boiling water, but they won't cook. And most pasta, even spaghettini, the package is going to say like 10 minutes, 12 minutes. So if you bring it raw, you're going to have to cook it that length of time. When I rehydrate pre-cooked and dehydrated spaghetti, I just pour boiling water on it and put it in a cozy. So I'm not running my stove for 10 or 12 minutes. So I'm saving a lot of fuel. And I did some math and figured out if I had a spaghetti dinner every night on the trail and I was cooking it from raw to properly cooked, I would be burning like 4 or 5 fuel canisters on a week, which is a lot if you're backpacking. So it's good to cook your pasta, dehydrate it, and bring it in the backcountry. You'll use a lot less fuel.
That's cool. I do find spaghetti noodles will poke through the plastic bag that you're. So I'd rather have other types of noodles in the bag as opposed to spaghetti because they'll poke them.
Yeah. So many things are sharp. Spaghetti, even rice, and even hamburger can be razor sharp. It seems. And the especially when you're vacuum sealing stuff, it rips the bags open. I think the vacuum sealing companies started making thinner bags. I never had the problem when I first got my vacuum sealer. It, maybe 1 bag in 20 would pop. Now it's like 19 bags in 20 pop. So you've got to double line them or put some parchment paper or something in them to protect it. Yeah. Another thing to think about you mentioned pasta and packaging and different kinds of pasta. One comment I've received, I didn't think about this much, but people like to remind me that pasta with holes in it, like rotini or macaroni, takes up more space than other stuff in your pack. So certain pastas are better for the backcountry than others.
Yeah, it does. And by the way, Avid, like you're looking gorgeous. Like this Moses look, I love it.
You like that?
Yeah.
See, I've been so torn lately whether I want to trim it back down real short again.
Well,
I don't know.
When the black flies come out, that will make your choice.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, and it gets stinky after a while when you get sweaty. You know, it's not a good time. And I found that it traps crumbs, and it's not a good look in public.
Are they dehydrated?
Goodness. Ethan, I'm going to make room for somebody else that's in the basement here. Stick around for the green room if you like, and we'll talk to you in a little bit, buddy.
Sounds good. See you
Well,
guys.
good to see you, man. It's been a while.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Awesome. You know, we're spending a lot of time on dehydrated foods. Something else I'd like to get into is actually food preparation, because different cooking methods warrant or may lead to different items that you could actually eat in the backcountry as well. Before we get into that, though, let's bring Evan up on stage here. Evan, how you doing, man?
Good, you guys?
Good. Thanks for jumping up on screen. What have you got for us?
Well, I'll start with my favorite meal is the butter chicken from Kevin's YouTube channel there.
Thank you.
There you go.
My son just loves that. He's always trying to get me to cook it so he can rehydrate it just for supper.
Right on.
How do you find the process of making that, Evan? Is it a fairly simple dehydrated meal to whoop up, like to prepare for dehydrating?
Yeah, it's pretty easy. The only thing I have trouble with is whenever I pressure cook the chicken, it doesn't quite rehydrate perfectly. I don't know if it's what I'm doing wrong there or something, but I can't seem to get it to hydrate right. It's always still kind of hard. And
yeah, so there's couple things. Turn it down, 5 degrees, maybe just a little bit. Your dehydrator might be a little bit hot, and check on it more frequently. Like you might be drying it a little bit too long. Chicken is tough. Like chicken can be a real challenge to get perfectly right. I've had some meals, like I've been doing this a lot. I wrote a book about it, and I still have failures once in a while. Some people tell me corn is really tough, like to get it right. So do those things. Turn it down 5 degrees. Try it again, and also check on it more frequently. Make sure you're not over drying it. I don't understand the science of over drying. It seems that when something doesn't have any moisture in it, you should be done. But something does happen sometimes with over drying. So just check on it a little bit more frequently.
So, yeah, I have a really poor quality freeze dryer dehydrator. It's just like a Sultan from Canadian Tire there. It's like $60 or something like that.
Yeah, so mix it up. After 3 or 4 hours, go take a fork and mix it all up and rotate your trays or whatever you got, and that'll help it dehydrate more evenly.
Yeah, another thing I like a lot is real lazy. I just get some hamburger helper.
Yeah,
and then just cook the hamburger helper with and then just do the chicken separate, and then just mix them and then dehydrate or rehydrate them out on the river.
Yeah. There's nothing like. I know when you look at my recipes, it looks all hardcore because I chose that style for the recipes in the book. But there's a whole lot of things out there that can make your life easier. So hamburger helper is one of them. I got some hamburger helper in this picture. Rice-A-Roni, the Ready Crisp bacon, tuna packs. They're not dehydrated, but they're light because they're a small pack. Mr. Noodles, potatoes, quick oats, shepherd's pie mix. Like if you there's a lot of things here and more in the stores that you can go grab and either cook on their own or add to something else that you dehydrated, like ground beef. So there's a ton of things, and I hope people appreciate that as well. You don't have to be hardcore dehydrator and dehydrate all your meals. You can do a blend for sure.
Yeah, the bannock is also another good option.
Yeah,
I like just frying it up with some lard. I usually just pack lard instead of butter or ghee and just fry it up in lard, and it's really good.
Nice.
Yeah, that picture though, Kevin, that speaks 1,000 words, right? Because sometimes it comes down to why reinvent the wheel, right? if that stuff is available to you and it's already pre-packaged and it's like, packaged to sit on a shelf in a grocery store, it's going to last a long time out in the backcountry.
Oh, I cook the hamburger helper and then dehydrate it.
Yeah. Yeah.
For the same reason why Kevin was saying, I found you save a lot of fuel if you can do it that way. And I'm not a canoeer. I'm a hiker. Like I mostly backpack down rivers, fly fishing. I live right in the Rockies in Alberta here. So weight is really, really important.
Yeah. Here's another one. David from Really Big Monkey One says salad grade bacon bits mixed with rice is easy to carry and cook. If you get the really real bacon bits, there again, it sits on the shelf in the store. It's not refrigerated. It can last a long time. But what I tend to do is I'll buy the big bag and I'll portion. I'll put a portion. I'll throw one of those oxygen absorbers in like they do it in the actual packaging. And then I vacuum seal it. And I could have my bacon bits, my real bacon bits for a week, or the Ready Crisp. Yeah.
Yeah, I have the Ready Crisp in that picture, and I get rid of the cardboard. I'm sure you do, Evan. And when I open this up, I tend to use it relatively quickly and keep it in a Ziploc bag or reportion it into smaller bags and vacuum seal it. And they also sell those bits in smaller bags that are great. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, my son eats that pack of bacon the first day. It never makes it past the first day. So.
You've been trying to get something out here. What have you got there, man?
Well, sorry, Kevin, this is the one I have, right? So when you're saying, I got all confused because I really do not do well in some things. So when you say to turn it down, I can't turn it down. I just turn it on. Like
you don't have a thermostat.
No.
Yeah, that's your challenge. Yeah, so that's why. All your stuff. So that's probably set at about 155 or 160 Fahrenheit. Get one with a thermostat. You can turn it down and your fruits and veggies should be around 135 instead of 160. And do all your meats at 160, chicken a little bit less at 155. And you'll have better results, better quality.
Okay, so what brand then? Because if I went to go shopping.
Yeah. I will show you. You missed the beginning of the show, Kev.
I did. I was busy.
It's okay. I'm showing my screen here, and so there's the Nesco, Kevin. I have one exactly like yours, and I had one when I started, very much like yours, but only had one of the handles. Like you have two on the top. I just had the one. So this is the newer version, and there's probably newer versions out there, and there's different size of Nescos. But the Nesco is cheap. You can get them on Amazon for like $60.
Really?
And they're not expensive. And this one has a thermostat. It doesn't have a timer. The Excalibur is pretty expensive. But the Nesco, if someone's starting out, I tell them go with that Nesco one. It's pretty inexpensive. It's got a thermostat, and you're in business. Get some trays for liquids, and you're in business.
I've got a Hamilton Beach, I think it is, and it's a rectangular shaped one, and it's got about 5 trays, and it comes with a couple of accessories, and it works quite well. It has both thermostat and a timer, so it's actually quite a nice one.
Yeah.
They
all work like Hamilton Beach, and there's a few other companies I'm not familiar with. They all work well. I find it's the trays. Like if they come with a tray for liquids, they're great for backpackers. If not, they're better for jerky and people that are drying garden, like their food from their garden. This is the standard tray in the middle that is comes with a dehydrator. I call it a rack. And then they've got a mesh tray for smaller things like blueberries or whatever. And then these fruit roll trays is what they call them that hold liquids very, very well. And usually the Nescos come with 2 of those fruit trays, and I always buy more so that I have plenty. Someone said that whatever brand of Nesco they got actually came with 12 of them, which is cool.
Wow. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, cool. I'm out of here, Dennis. That's it. There's way too much information Kevin's giving us. My brain is overwhelmed.
Well, before you take off, Kevin, I will see you on Saturday for our interview on stage with Hap.
Yes.
Looking forward to that. Should be a good time at the Toronto Outdoor Adventure Show. And for anybody that is going to the Outdoor Adventure Show, check out my Facebook page to save yourself $3 on admission. And stop by and watch Kevin Happ and myself up on stage. It should be fun.
Well, I'm a little nervous. I'll be bringing extra underwear.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. We're both wearing our Canoe Hound Adventures underwear, right?
Actually, that's right.
Too much information.
Yeah, well, I will wear that. Yeah.
Okay. Christine's not going to let you show them off, though.
I'm not sure where that was, though. Someone borrowed them.
Yeah.
Just joking.
Cheers, Kevin. Have a good time.
Thanks, Kevin. We'll talk later, man.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Evan, so did you have anything else? Any other questions? Or we move on to Peter there?
No, yeah. I just can't figure out how to get off of here now.
All you got to do is at the bottom, you'll see a little red X that says leave studio.
Oh, there we go.
Thanks very much for joining us, man. I appreciate that. Sorry, he ducked out. Peter, how you doing today?
Hey, good. You guys?
Good. What
Awesome.
I just want to, I guess, mainly jump on to say thank you to you guys. Kevin, I've messaged you a couple times on YouTube. I appreciate it. So for my dinners, I got a whole bunch of meals in there: buttered chicken, shepherd's pie, the stew. So very informative, and I really appreciate it. And Dennis, I ended up buying that vacuum sealer that you mentioned, and
awesome.
I think it was even the desiccant packets too. So that's how I do my dinners now. So I think I got it pretty dialed in. For me, it started with Joe Robinette, watching his spaghetti. That's how I started.
Yeah.
And I just made a one pot meal. I got 3 boys, so we just had a big dinner, family dinner, and I have that same round dehydrator. But then since then, I love that the comments about doing the ground beef separate, and I won't go back from that now. So lunch for me, keep it simple with the wraps and those. I found those tuna packs that you can buy from the grocery store, the Mylar bag ones. They seem to be pretty handy. And I also saw, I think it was Freak of Nature's comment on there about the breakfast. So I thought I'd kind of share what I had for breakfast. And it was, these guys were backcountry hunting guys. I can't think of the channel name YouTube, but he called it like a mountain mush. But it started with ordering these Mylar bags off of Amazon. And that's kind of how I was going to go until funny enough, this morning when I tried something a little different, I brought it to work, was I'm not a huge, I guess, fan of the oatmeal myself. But I just thought of so I changed the oatmeal itself, the quick oats, out to the protein, I guess, granola from Walmart, and it made a huge difference. So a few things that was in them, like you put in like a tablespoon of the hemp hearts, chia seeds, and some cinnamon, and I did some dehydrated blueberries and I think apples, the frozen ones. They turned out okay, but all that together. Oh, and these guys, I got a scoop of protein powder, put it in. So I think it's all around close to 500 calories or more. So it's a good hearty start to your day. So I like the idea with the granola. You just pour water in it. You don't even need to heat your water up. So if you're, other than for me, I'll have to heat the water for coffee. Got to have my coffee. But if you're get up and want to go, the idea of the Mylar bags I thought were neat. If you didn't also want to do dishes, you could just pour the water right in. So I thought that one was pretty cool. So just thought I'd share that one with everybody. So
Peter, can I ask, are you in Canada or United States?
Canada. I'm in Ontario. So
okay.
Do you know our the cupboard?
Because some of the ingredients, and you mentioned the tuna in the Mylar bag, like stuff like that.
Yeah.
For anybody that is fortunate enough to live, fortunate or unfortunate enough to live near a border town, such as myself, I live in the Niagara Falls region, so I can pop over to the United States. I haven't in a long time since COVID, right? But I find U.S. grocery stores, like, they have such a much larger variety of foods that we can utilize in the backcountry that we do here in Canada. Like, they don't have like 4 kinds of tuna wrap or in Mylar. They got 100 And there's all different flavors. They had Cajun and lemon pepper. Like, it's endless. So like even Spam, you go over there and you could buy 30 different flavors of Spam in the little foil pouches. Right.
For sure.
So
I imagine these guys were, I'm just guessing that they're probably from the States that were the hunters. So that's maybe where a lot of it came from. So the ideas anyways, but it took me the first try I clicked on their link of the bags, and of course I got the tiny ones the first shot around. So
yeah. Cool. Yeah, you know what? If anybody else wants to see a cool breakfast recipe similar to what Peter's talking about, is Noah from the Northern Scavengers. He does like this like 5,000 or 3,000 calorie breakfast that's got dehydrated or freeze dried peanut butter in it, or peanut butter powder, I think it's called, and protein powders and the whole 9 yards, a whole banana in there and stuff. And yeah, nice hearty breakfast. Really can set the day off. That's for sure. Especially if it's something that's not just oatmeal, right? And Kevin actually had so many different recipes on there that are different things other than oatmeal. So
yeah, that's a challenge. Peter, you're making breakfast for my wife with the hemp hearts and the chia seeds and all that stuff. That's what she normally eats on a regular basis. So yeah, I know it's good for you because she's studied that pretty heavily.
For sure. First time I've kind of experimented with it, and it's surprisingly it was tasted really, really good. A lot better than they're the quick oats. So I don't know if I just didn't have enough hot water in there, but.
So something else that you had mentioned too, Peter, is the first thing, like, a la Joe Robinette, one of the first things you dehydrated was a spaghetti. And I think spaghetti and a sauce is something that every dehydrator is the first person, or like the first time a person is dehydrated is a pasta. It's a leftover. You go, I'm going to try this, right?
Yes. And that was the one that I seemed to dial in the first time, like to get it right, I guess. And biggest tips for me, I guess, being scared was the rancid part, but you guys talking so much about the washing the ground beef thoroughly is haven't had any issues yet. And I also this time around at the spaghetti, I went with the round noodles because I've had the same experience with the switching to the vacuum seal bags, was the noodles poking through, and I don't know, it's a huge deal, but you open up your bag and it's clearly lost the air seal. But someone else had a share with, I thought was pretty cool, was the paper bag. Put the spaghetti in the paper bag first and then vacuum seal it. I found that worked. So
I've had success with that, and then I've had a lot of failures with it too, right? But the ones that pop open are the ones you take to the day camp on the weekend and you eat them right away.
Right. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Well, and I have the when I do take my boys, like the spaghetti, you can't go wrong. So like, I don't know.
Yeah.
With the fancy stuff. So.
Sure, for sure. Yeah. Kevin, I had a question too about, now you have a whole variety of different items that you obviously are dehydrating and rehydrating. Now, I noticed for like the breakfast things, you had a lot of things that you wouldn't rehydrate using boiled water. You would probably use cold water, such as like the peaches and berries and stuff like that. Or would you use hot water? Do you use hot water for everything?
You can do either. Cold soaking is more and more common because people who are backpacking, there's a trend with some backpackers to not bring a stove at all, and so you cold soak all your meals. It just takes a little bit longer. But yeah, the peaches could be done cold or hot. I like them hot. Yogurt, even though we normally eat cold yogurt, you can add warm water and it tastes really good. So warm water just makes things rehydrate faster. Boiling, I tend to boil my water and pour that into a pot with whatever food I have and put a cozy on it. Let it sit for 15 minutes. If it's not done by then, it'll be done in 20. But cold soakers will tend to like put water in their food like an hour before they get to camp for supper or overnight for the breakfast, and just let it take longer. And it'll still rehydrate. Not everything rehydrates really well with cold. Meats are a bit tough. I've heard people rehydrating chicken for 4 hours, but a lot of things will rehydrate in about an hour. Or if you're for breakfast, you could rehydrate them overnight. I've done salsa like that because you don't really want hot salsa, and it works really well.
Yeah. What about the long soak? Something that maybe you would, do a cold soak all day type of thing. Breakfast time, you're preparing your breakfast, and then you got the extra hot water or something. Is that recommendable, or is that something you should stay away from?
I tend not to do that, but I think that would work really well, especially with like Yeti cups and stuff. Like, it depends what your trip is like. If you're backpacking, you don't want to be carrying water all day long. But on a canoe trip where you don't have any portage, that makes sense. And if you had a Yeti cup, that would work really well.
Mm-hmm.
I probably wouldn't bother, but I think that would work.
Yeah, or in an Algene bottle, right?
Yeah, just if you want it hot at the end, or you want it cold at the end, is what you're going after. Like, you could rehydrate something overnight with hot water, and it'll be cool by morning.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Peter, any other questions or anything else you'd like to share?
No, I'm good. Thank you so much, guys.
Well, thank you very much for joining us on panel here. It's not every day. We got great attendance tonight, man. I love seeing people pop on the chat here and getting involved.
Good to meet you, Peter.
Thanks.
Yes, it was nice meeting you guys in person. Thanks so much.
Thanks,
Have
man.
a good
Keep
night.
the adventures alive.
You too. Bye.
Donald, how you doing, man? Good luck. Good seeing you. I haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah, I'm doing good. How are you, Dennis? It has been quite a while. Yeah, how you doing, Kevin?
Good. How are you, Donald?
Very good, very good. Yeah, it's been hard to tune into the show for the past 6 months. Just always something getting in the way. But this is a really good show about all the food. Michaela's a great guest to have on the show. But like all the dehydrating that you're talking about, a YouTuber that I watch pretty often. She does a ton of dehydrating, everything for her family that you can dream of. She's called the Purposeful Pantry. And she does a super job. She'll dehydrate just about everything and put complete meals together too in mason jars. But something for a lot of people that, like when I started dehydrating stuff, is a lot of people who are new to it should just try it at home. You don't have to prepare it and think you're going to take it in the backcountry and have an absolute fail. You can play around with it at home all you want and have a picnic outside if you'd like, and then you can tweak what you're doing to make it just right so you've got it proper for when you are in the backcountry and you don't want to waste anything. Mm-hmm. So that's helpful. And I saw some comments too about like the freeze-dried meals, like Mountain House, for example. Someone commented about the sodium in it. And that's a real big thing about if you're like you do, Kevin, you're dehydrating, making your own meals, you can control what's in those meals. When you get all of those pre-made things or backpackers pantry and stuff, a lot of them, the sodium is through the ceiling in those meals. So you're not only exerting yourself possibly hiking or portaging or on a canoe trip, but you're also putting in way too much salt in your body, which seems like a bad thing. I'm just kind of aware, kind of like if you go down the frozen food aisle in your favorite store, like here in the States, if you want it, it's here. Frozen food, anything. Like you were saying, Dennis, there's not 3 items, there's 300 items in our stores. But if you look at all of those, regardless of the company, the sodium on those is just, it's way more than any person should be taking in. Pretty bad. So that's something to consider, with that. But also I found like with a lot of meals, I've looked at a lot of your meals, Kevin, watched you on YouTube make a lot. Dennis, I've watched a lot of things you've made on your trips. And I pick up little helpful hints here and there. Is I do a lot with ground meat. Like if you want to make a pepper steak or a teriyaki with rice and vegetables meat, I just use the ground meat, the real lean ground meat, because then you can rinse the fat out of it. And you're not trying to dehydrate a chunk of meat. You're making jerky. You can just use the ground beef. So any kind of meal that is mixed up with a beef, you can do with ground beef. I think that's a possibility. But a question I had though, and Dennis, you might know, and Kevin, I bet you know, is what about ground turkey? How does that dehydrate?
It's a lot. Sure, it's a lot like chicken. I've found that It works better if you pressure cook it. It's
Okay.
still kind of tough like chicken. It's a challenge like chicken. I don't think I've ever found canned turkey, but I'm sure it exists somewhere.
Oh, probably.
Yeah. I haven't tried it a lot. That's have to add that to my list. I like what you said though, Donald, about dialing in on what you want. Sodium's one thing, portion size is another. Because some of these meals are too big, some are too small. I've really dialed in on measuring out my meals by how many grams, like dry grams. I'm about 120 dry grams per meal. My wife's about 100. When I was younger, I was about 150 grams per meal. So if you dial in on your dry weight of your meal, what works for you, then you're not wasting food. Dennis has a dog. Last time I said this on his show, he says I just give it to my dog, and that's great.
Clean up
but
crew.
I've been to camp. Yeah, I've been to campsites where I found food that's been dumped or thrown in the lake or whatever, and it's just that's not the way to go. So it's better if you can dial in on just the right amount. And if you have allergies or if you have food preferences, you can tinker with that. Vegetarian, vegan, it's up to you.
Yeah, and I think I measure most of my stuff by volume. I'm just used to it that way. And of course, when my son and I go out, there is no leftovers ever. So we kind of joke. We joke about that a lot. So it doesn't matter. It gets eaten. So it's not a big deal. But yeah, dialing in on what you like is a really good thing to do that way, and controlling what you got into it too.
Now, if I could add one thing though on that, Donald, you had mentioned about like the high sodium content of a lot of these freeze-dried meals like Mountain House and stuff like that.
Right.
I think one of the reasons for that too, and somebody like a buddy of mine, myself, were talking about that just the other day, believe it or not, and he brought up a good point. When him and I go on a canoe trip, we always bring like the ramen noodles, right?
Oh yeah.
And those things are super high in sodium,
Oh,
right?
they're bad.
You know what? Let me give you a pointer. If you have one of them days where you're out there sweating your behind off, right? You're losing a lot of sodium and it could be sweltering hot. You get to camp, you make one of those ramen noodle things and just sip that thing back when it's cooled off a bit. And you're going to feel the energy come back into your system because you're replacing sodium. And I think that might be the case of a lot of these dehydrated meals that are high in sodium, is they're expecting high intensity, hiking or backpacking or canoeing or whatever it might be that's going to drain sodium out of your body, and you're just replacing water. You're not replacing, unless you're using electrolytes or something like that. But I think getting that sodium back in your body is a key thing. It might be high, but I think it might be for a reason.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Actually, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
complete. Yeah. And if you want the sodium, the ramen noodles, they'll definitely do it for you.
Yeah,
for sure.
Now we've been talking a lot about meat too, but what about meat substitutes? Here's something I pick up from a YouTube channel, a website called Good to Go Co. They're out of Vancouver.
Okay.
This here, it's almost like a prepping website, but this here it's by Ready Hour, and it's a black bean burger. Okay, so basically you could create hamburgers with this. It says right on here, black beans with seasoning. You can make into tacos, patties, use as beef substitute in recipes, etc. This stuff is amazingly good. And believe it or not, if you made it into like a burger and you put it on like little bannock buns, you would be surprised. It's like a vegan version of hamburger type of thing, right? But there's always that there, like a soy substitute for ground beef or something in a sauce or whatever. So
yeah, that might be a good choice for a lot. I mean, I don't mind using the meat. I don't mind carrying. Well, I dehydrated, I vacuum seal everything, so it puts the weight down. But I still put a small cooler freezer pack in our food pack, and because we still take fresh stuff, steaks and Italian sausages and all that stuff. But of course, we eat all that fresh stuff first.
Right.
Then again, too. When I head out, or my son and I head out, we usually go right after Mother's Day coming up in a couple of weeks, if the ice goes away. So we're usually out real early or very late in the season. So heat is really not normally an issue. We really don't go out in the summertime. So things are a little different for us that way. I can keep fresh food good for 4, 5, 6 days. If you're out and it's only 50 degrees at best during the day. So Fahrenheit. But during the summer though, that's a whole different story. Completely.
Yeah.
So those meat substitutes you have there, Dennis, would be a good thing to use. For like you said, you can make some burgers, real thin burgers on some bannock or something. That'd be great.
Yeah, I just posted the link to Good to Go Co. Which you know what, for anybody that might be interested in something like that, they got all kinds of like prepping meals and stuff. But if you look for this in particular, the Ready Hour, they have a few things, but most of their things are really difficult because you got to go through a whole cooking process. Whereas this here, you could just cold soak it, right? So
perfect.
Yeah.
All right, that's awesome.
Yeah, man. Well, Donald, what's your favorite backcountry meal?
My favorite meal, the next one.
The next one, attaboy.
Yeah. Kind of like Kevin Callan says about his favorite trips. The next one. Oh, I don't know. We like to do a lot of chili. Chili with elbow macaroni, chili mac. That's always good. Our favorite snack, really though, is Italian sausages with some grilled onions on a real thin bannock rolled up, and that's like a treat. It's really not a meal. It's just something to eat. But I make a meal that's an elbow soup, and it's just meat and tomatoes and vegetables and elbow noodles, and then you throw in a thing of Lipton onion soup mix and cook it as long as you want. It's one of those things, the longer it simmers, the better, and it's pretty simple, it's pretty bland, but it's very good in the backcountry.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Sounds like food, man. I like it. I had to have something before I come on tonight because I knew I was going to get hungry, right?
Exactly. So that's kind of the points I wanted to make, but it's been a really great show too. I'm glad I actually got to tune in for a change, so it's been really good.
Thanks, Donald. You know what? To anybody that might be interested too, we did a show similar to this a couple of years ago, and the link is in it's in the top part of the description just below here. Check that out. It was done, and actually Kevin and Michaela were on the show as well.
Yep.
And we did cover a few things. A lot of what was covered tonight was covered there, but we did cover other things as well. So that's cool.
All
Donald,
right.
thanks for joining in, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. You guys take care. We will see you again.
All righty, sir. Ciao.
Good to see you, Donald.
See ya. Take care.
Yeah, it's interesting, to see and hear different ideas of food that people have, Kevin? Like, I'm sure you're, like you mentioned earlier, you're learning every time you dehydrate, to pick up more recipes, to pick up different ideas is always a blessing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think one of the things people really appreciate in the backcountry is diversity in a well-made meal. Simple meals like elbow soup or my beef and rice are popular, but when you're having something a little fancier in the backcountry that was really easy to make once you got to the backcountry, people tend to really gravitate to that. The Food Network is not going bankrupt anytime soon. They're very, very busy. So we all like to eat, and it's a shared experience, especially when you're with people, and it enhances your experience. And if you have a really nice meal, maybe you've had a crappy day and it's raining or whatever, and you get under a tarp and heat up some water and makes buttered chicken as an example, that just enhances your experience and creates bonds, and it's just a better way to do things. And so part of the reason for my book and for your show and why maybe this one's kind of popular is because people like that experience, and not just helping them get to the backcountry. That's one, get lighter food that lasts a long time, but then the next step is to bring a better quality food and food that you can enjoy with friends and family.
Yeah. I don't know if Kevin Callan is still in the chat over there, but Kevin, if you're in the chat, I'd like you to pop back into the live stream for a minute, because I'm going to pull up something here to close the show out with, if I could find it. Oh, right here by the Dutch Explorer. He's asking, what's the very worst meals everyone has had out back? There should be some funny stories here. So I'd like to kind of close out tonight's show on something like this and add a little humor to our appetites. Kevin, what's the worst meal you ever had in the backcountry?
Oh, I've had some bad ones for sure. I've burnt stuff, dropped stuff. My wife, I was in Woodland Caribou with my kids, and I dropped stuff and dented my pan and spilled stuff and had to clean it up. I think last time I was on, I told a story about a bagel running away from me, rolling down into the lake. I don't think I've had any bad meals. I mean, I don't know. Here's a photo. This is not a bad meal. It's a good meal. But this is my daughter's birthday cake. We're camping near White Otter Lake, and so it's not a bad meal. But I'm changing the answer to your question and just saying, again, it's about being with folks, and a good meal or a bad meal. It's better with other folks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know what? I think in the backcountry, you eat foods in the backcountry that you probably wouldn't even normally eat at home. And it's all delicious. It doesn't matter how it turns out. It could be a bit burnt.
Yeah.
It could be a bit charred. Like I've had bannock with the crispy black crust on it. You know what? I remember one time. Remember that shows the Chinese cook there. It was Yan Can.
Yan can cook. Yeah, he was awesome.
Yeah, Yan Can cook. He always used to say, if it burns and people say it's burnt, you tell them no. It's supposed to be like that.
It's charred. Right? Yeah, exactly.
So I've always lived with that theory. I would say probably one of the worst experiences I ever had in the backcountry would be the one time that and the reason why I was asking you about spoilage with meats and stuff like that. I took the family to Algonquin Park. We were camping we were car camping, and we were at Canis Bay Campground. And both my daughters, one was in her like in a bassinet, so she was only a couple months old, and the other one was like maybe 3 years old. There's 3 years between my girls, and I made the dehydrated spaghetti sauce, and I had my ground beef that was all dehydrated, and I think I probably did not rinse the ground beef, or it probably wasn't a lean ground beef, and it ended up spoiling. But I didn't know until the next morning that we were packing up that I made more frequent trips to the bathroom because I actually got food poisoning, and I had like full on food poisoning with weakness and stuff. So you still have to be careful with food preparation. You have to make sure you store it properly, and it takes care, right? It does take care in all reality. Storage, making sure the air doesn't get to it, properly prepared. And that's why a lot of these, these meals here, they're all health inspected and stuff like that. And they do that for a reason, is because they don't want people being like Dennis and running to the bathroom every 30 seconds because you can't keep anything in the top or the bottom. So, yeah,
for sure.
So that's awesome. So what was that? Your daughter's 6th birthday?
That's my daughter's birthday. Yeah. 1, 2, 3. It looks like 6. Yeah.
That's cool. And then before we close out the show here for the night, one last thing. This past winter, and we never really got into different cooking techniques and stuff like that, but tell everybody what you cooked in your hot tent on the side of your stove.
Yeah,
so cool.
I've got a reflector oven that I like to experiment with and do baking in, and I thought I've given a baked chicken, a roast chicken, a try. And so I roasted a whole chicken. I've got a video on that. I put the chicken in my reflector oven and propped it up against my wood stove, and so it was right tight against the wood stove, and all the heat went into the chicken. I had to rotate the chicken around a little bit. It roasted really, really well. It was great. After I shot the video, I only ate one of the breasts in the video. The bottom wasn't quite done. So I realized my my tray that I had it in, the aluminum foil tray that I had it in, was a little bit high and was probably shielding the chicken a little bit. So next time I'll cut down on that. But that's the fun of trying these different things, is figuring out what works. I think my when I was in Scouts, we started making pasta and spaghetti sauce on Coleman stoves, and that was great. But my Scout leader really pushed us to try different things, and so we were baking on those stoves and doing other things. And I remember one rainy day, and I talk about this in the book, really rainy camping trip at a jamboree with all these other Scouts, and they're all having pasta with sauce, and that's great. They're enjoying it. And we have roast chicken because we made a big oven with aluminum foil, and the corners had rods, rebar rods drilled into the ground. We hammered them into the ground. We put chicken mesh around those rods, and we filled them with charcoal, and made these ovens, and we roasted like 5 or 6 chickens for like a whole bunch of people. And it was one of those experiences that really taught me that you can push the limits with food in the backcountry. And So this discussion in my book and Michaela's efforts are all an extension of that kind of thing, right? We're just trying to push the limits and do better, have a better time and do better.
Yep. Yeah. Like I say, you can eat like a king out there in the backcountry. There's no reason with a little preparation that you can't go out there and feast. I'll give one adage to my video series a couple of years ago when we did the Aubrey Lake, Rocky Island Lake Loop. And I'll tell you, I got more compliments on the meals because every day my cousin would come up to me with the camera and go, "Hey, Dennis, what are you cooking today?" Right? And we'd have the breakfast skillet. We had the lasagna, shepherd's pie, chicken quesadilla. And it was like just an endless menu. And I go, my goodness, I don't let my wife hear this, but I don't eat that good at home sometimes. No, my wife's an excellent cook, but it's you can eat really well out there. You just got to make that effort. So by all means,
yeah,
awesome. Well, Kevin, you know what? Thanks very much for joining me tonight and shedding your wealth of information with dehydrating food. I wish we could have had Randy on as well to talk about the deep fry or freeze dried end, because I'll tell you, they both go hand in hand. I bring a lot of dehydrated meals and I bring some freeze dried meals, and it's kind of a nice balance when you're in the backcountry. So yeah, by all means, we'll have him on one day, and I'm sure you will be back on once again in the future as well.
Sure.
So, yeah,
happy to be here. Yeah.
So once again, everybody,
you,
for anybody that hasn't picked up a copy of Kevin's book called Backcountry Eats, please do pick up a copy and keep him at number one on the Amazon list there for backcountry, cooking recipes and stuff like that. And the link is in the description below. You can get a copy of his book through Amazon, or is there another way that they can get it through you too? Or
yeah, you can go to backcountryeats.com. Sorry, it's backcountry-eats.com. And it'll have links to my Amazon store as well as my publisher. I will say, do not get the Kindle edition. If you get an e-edition, it is messed up. I have no control over that. I will write my publisher some letters, but don't get the Kindle edition. You'll just end up returning it. The other e-versions are okay. And I will work on that. But yeah, I see lots of folks have bought my book, and I really appreciate that. So thanks everyone who's bought the book, and especially if you've enjoyed the recipes and you're talking up the book to others. That's much appreciated.
Oh, you know what? We got into food so big tonight that I forgot to do something here. Randy from OTG Meals, for all of you that stuck around right to the end here, I see 100 still in the house. Randy from OTG Meals told me that he wanted me to give away a 3-pack of meals, and it would be to one lucky winner, and he will let you pick whatever meals he has available at that time. And you can select 3 and he's going to send them out to you. So before you all leave, okay, through the evening, I've been snacking on something pretty wonderful from OTG Meals. Okay. And I want you to tell me in an email, and you need to send it to COAS Prize. I'm just going to get that ticker going across the bottom. Send me an email to coasprize@gmail.com, and you have until Saturday at 11 o'clock to be entered. So this is kind of a sneaky little giveaway here, because you know what? Anybody that ducked out early, they don't get to enter unless they watch to the end. So tell me what I was eating throughout the show, and it's so yummy. I wish I could share one with you, Kevin. And I'll draw one lucky winner, and I will connect you with Randy, and he will get you out 3 nice OTG meals that you could try in the backcountry. So let's do that.
Right on.
All righty.
Very
Kevin,
cool.
I'll see you in the basement in a few minutes. I'm just
Right
going to
on.
close out here, and thank you once again for participating tonight.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Cheers, my friend. All right, everybody. I hope you all enjoyed that show. Don't forget to shoot me an email at COAS Prize and let me know what I've been snacking on all night. And I'll take whatever's close enough. Everybody calls them different things. Anyways, don't forget, this weekend, Toronto, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the Toronto Outdoor Adventure Show. The doors open at 10 o'clock, and I think that goes to like 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening. Saturday, I will be presenting on the Adventures in Paddling stage, which is in the main hall, in the main room. And my special guest will be, of course, Kevin Callan, because he's always close by, and Hap Wilson. And we're going to be doing a fun little interview with them guys to see if we can learn a little bit more about them. And I'll be hanging out all weekend at the Kid Products booth because they are sponsoring my presentation. And by all means, stop by, check out a twig stove or reflector oven or one of their new titanium pots that they also offer. So by all means, I hope to see you on the show. Stop by and say hello. I really like to say hi to everybody and meet everybody. And I really look forward to that. Anyways, have a great week, everybody. Keep the adventures alive. Stay safe and healthy. And we'll see you next week.